to order. Welcome everybody. Remind you to shut off your cell phones or what is it called, airport mode or whatever.
Airplane mode.
Airplane mode. So anyway, shut them off, whatever. We'll start with a prayer by Steve Ayers, Lifeline Church, followed by the pledge.
Let's pray. Lord, again, we just thank you for your love and your grace, and we thank you for your guidance in our lives each and every day. And Lord, we pray for the men and women that lead our village. Lord, continue to give them wisdom and guidance. We just thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At least Steve don't ramble on like the mayor always does.
I need to have longer ones. Why do you give a mess?
Aaron, you did a good job.
Bassett?
Here.
Egley? Here. Klepper?
You're fine.
Here.
Martin?
Here.
Beverly is absent.
Okay, approval of the July 17th regular council meeting minutes. Any corrections, additions?
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Bassett?
Yes.
Egley? Yes. Klepper?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Barth?
Yes.
Okay, you had before you the July 19th special council meeting minutes for your approval. Any additions, corrections?
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Egley? Yes. Klepper?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Barth?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
Okay, have before you the bills. Any questions? Concerns?
I see here the Defiance County Recorder vacated plat. Did we actually vote to approve to vacate that?
Yes.
Last meeting.
You and I were the ones that voted no.
Last meeting, yes.
So what's the plan with that parcel?
It's divvied up between the two.
Vacated, they each get like half of it goes to the adjoining property owners, so I'm not sure what they're, I know there was,
So we just voted to approve, we didn't approve or to vacate, right? It's still our property though, isn't it?
no, it becomes that once it's vacated, then like basically you take it and divide it down the middle, and the half of it goes to, it becomes part of the property of the adjoining owners. Just like we did out here on, well, we did back here by the Eagles, I know. Before you guys did like expansion or something. And the other time I remember we did it was Columbus Street extended, where there really isn't a road, but there was one on paper that went back in there
So it's automatically absorbed by the property owners?
Yes.
Not,
by the adjoining property owners.
didn't realize that was what happened.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second. Eric, make the motion. Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Klepper?
Abstain.
Martin?
Yes.
Egley? Yes. Barth?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
Okay, a notice of a public hearing on an application for a lot split to be held August 17th at 6 p.m. in the zoning office. The request is for .14 acre, more or less, at 941 Rivers Drive, so that's coming up in a couple weeks. Anything on boards and commissions? Anybody got anything to report? Okay, what about council committee reports?
I don't have minutes done, but water sewer did meet on, what day was that, Wednesday? Yeah, I think it was Wednesday. Just to discuss business expansion here in town, how that might affect utilities. It's not yet public, I don't believe, so the business isn't.
I don't know if it's public or not.
That's, so we weren't sure of the status, so
Yeah.
that's, I wanted to, I guess,
Probably better not
yeah,
say.
discuss the details, but we didn't see any issues with it.
Okay. Good, thanks for meeting, make sure. Any other committee reports? Okay. Administrators report.
We have a few things. First of all, the bid opening for the pool, we did extend it for 2 more weeks due to the fact that there were a few different contractors who were not able to meet that bid deadline. So the actual deadline now is going to be August 23rd instead of the 11th. We are hoping to have the light poles for the volleyball courts installed either the end of this week or the beginning of next week. Maple Lane paving is scheduled for the week of August 22nd. EPA was on site and did their walk through the wastewater plant. They were here for about 4 hours on Friday. The only, you want to call it a red flag, is again, they don't like our storage area for our road salt. So we're trying to find an alternate location. I had asked about an alternate location at the front of the plant there, and they seem to be okay with that, but now it's just getting something put in place to have a covered salt bunker. We are hoping to start later this week with the street painting, the crosswalks here in town. One big issue that came about in the last week is we've always taken our grass and our leaves out to Sterheim's. And when Eric had passed away, his children had taken this over and was informed that after September they will no longer be taking any of this stuff. So we've reached out to a couple places to see if they would take leaves and grass from the village. One place is kind of skeptical about taking that, the leaves and the grass. If we don't get an outlet to take our leaves and our grass, I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do as a village, especially at the recycle lot, because we won't have an outlet to take that stuff. 344 Chicago Avenue, the house that caught fire. It is scheduled to be, the demo is scheduled to start at the end of this week. One thing when it comes to budget for next year, we've got a handful of light fixtures down there at the Little League fields. There's 7 or 8 of them that need to be completely replaced. They're burned up, the fixtures, the ballast and everything. I did reach out to Energy Optimizers to get a turnkey price to replace all those fixtures. There's 39 fixtures total. Their estimate came in at $59,000 to replace all those. There is
How many? There's how many?
39.
39.
There is 2 other companies that are working on estimates for those as well.
Do you have them looking at adding a pole for field 6 and adding a head there?
It would have to be down third baseline there somewhere.
Yeah, because there's the existing pole, just to light field 6, so then the other fields could be lit, all 3 fields could be lit.
I mean, that wasn't part of this, no, but I know HBA has asked about putting lights on the back of the pole on third baseline of field 7.
Mhm. Might be worth, if you've got everybody looking at numbers, just to have
Sure.
them also put numbers together to see what that would cost to light.
And I'm still trying to figure why those poles are as high as what they are. You go to other towns and they're maybe 50 feet. I think 7 of ours are 60 and one of them's like 75. It's a big lift.
Who are the other companies you're reaching out to? Is Musco or Qualite on that list, or?
No, I talked to McCall McKay, and they had a company that's similar to Energy Optimizers. And I sent them everything except for the pricing from Energy Optimizers, and then Darren Brown was also interested in throwing us a number to change those out.
Did Owens replace bulbs and stuff down there?
Yeah.
Might be worth reaching out to them too.
Right, I mean, I can, yes. We've got some extra bulbs, but it's like at this point, if you've got 7 fixtures now, we get a couple more that go out, is it really worth putting that old technology back into those?
Yeah.
Didn't AEP have a program where you were to switch around your lights into more of the LEDs and things? I think years ago, didn't we do that at
They
the
did.
basketball court or somewhere? I can't remember. I thought they had a program.
They did. I don't know if they have any incentives anymore.
No,
They used to, if you added, I think the only thing they have now is like daylight harvesting and occupancy sensors. Pretty much if you haven't changed fluorescent bulbs over to LED or high pressure sodium metal halide, you should have done that years ago. I mean, if you had the money to do it. And I don't think there's any incentive money anymore.
Now, Stacy Agler is our AEP rep, and she was the first person I reached out to, see if AEP would be interested in doing something. And they would change them over, but they'd be more like a street light. And then they would take the poles over and we would rent those poles every month. So they really don't have actual playing field lighting. So, no, but AEP does not have any type of incentives. So,
Is that all you have? No?
yeah, the only other thing I've got is, we had talked as a council about park director's position. For next year's budget, I do have it budgeted for a full-time director. Wanted to get some input to see when council feels that we ought to start advertising for this position.
I don't know if that was approved yet by council. I mean, is that something that whole council would agree on and go through personnel, or, I mean, it's a bigger position of something we've never had before. Job description and things of that nature with personnel committee.
So she's definitely retiring? Okay, because I know it was touch and go there for a while.
Yeah.
We talked about budgets was one big thing. I mean,
Right.
We're gonna talk about budgets, we're gonna talk about possibly bringing somebody in then. Which hopefully all the department heads start getting their budgetary numbers around for next year, so we can look at them plenty in advance, unlike last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a position that needs filled,
Yeah.
one way or another. And obviously, if you're,
And whether we go a full-time or we do another season, I would like to see a full-time person have with it, and that's totally up to you guys.
It might be nice for it to go through personnel committee just so that they have an actual description, job description, kind of figure out what we want them to do. I know with the pool project being big, we need to make sure that they understand that, they're willing to take that on.
it'd be nice to get that person at least on board through the construction process, just so they're familiar with everything.
Did she give you a date?
They just say end of the year.
Okay. I'll get with Cheryl and see about a job description and then send it to you guys.
Sounds good.
Get something posted soon.
Other than that, that's all I got.
We want to mention about the park project to get the council's blessing on the Frisbee.
I was gonna put together a streetlight property committee meeting to discuss the new, I think we're going for an 18-hole Frisbee golf course that would incorporate the entire
Okay.
park, both sides of the road. but
So
be
you're going to
privately
bring
funded.
it before that committee and then just, okay. Any questions for Corey?
I was gonna ask about the motors and everything out of the sewer plant with the issue you had. I see you had the one bill there, right, for 24,000. That's up and running. Do you get the second one up and running?
Yeah, there's 2 of them now up and running, yes. Number 2, which would be the middle unit down there, that blower is actually over there at Scott's place. I don't know if he's tore into that thing yet or not, but that 24,000, we'd actually, I think it was like 53,000 and some change budgeted for that one, so I really won't know any more about the other one until Scott tears into it and see what's going on with it.
And how about the tanks? I mean, they were getting refurbished and
Yep, one
repiped
tank,
and everything.
one tank is refurbished and online. It's starting to, they haven't started to fill it, but they will start to put product to the east tank, and then the west tank will down.
We'll get close to winter again. I know we did that project in the dead of winter, and that's kind of what caused, I think, some of the damage to the pipes, and I wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah,
That's
the west tank, the plan is to get it about halfway down, and then come spring, finish it out, get everything cleaned up and inspected.
Does that one need, I mean, are you anticipating that one needing rebuilt similar to?
And nowhere near that. We feel there's some diffusers that'll probably need to be replaced. We'll probably end up replacing all the diffusers. I don't know when the last time they were all replaced.
So how long until the sewer plant's back to full operation, like full, like capacity of the way it was designed?
You want me to chime in here?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, my intention, I mean, this is a long process.
Yeah.
It really is, because with two guys and already being behind the ball coming in here, it's gonna take a long time. So I'm gonna be optimistic because we still got a lot to do out in the collection system. I'll be optimistic 2 to 3 years. There's a lot to do. As for the tanks and stuff like that, we're really close. That'll be online within the next week. I'm hoping this week. We keep finding problems with the old pipes. That's our problem. So we are hoping, best case scenario, you get it back together, everything works perfect. Well, with age, everybody knows it doesn't work perfect. For example, today, I was hoping to be done completely. We have to fill that up every time to check for pressure leaks, cracks. If there's any leaks, cracks, guess what happens? The 22, 23, I'm sorry, more than that. The 20-some thousand we spent to rebuild it is just a wash. So I want to make sure it's perfect. Any leaks, I don't want to compromise that tank. So that tank is very close.
So you're thinking like 2 to 3 years to basically get caught up on all the deferred maintenance from before?
Maintenance is basically done.
Yeah.
I mean, in the plant wise, we're still backed up on a couple things, don't get me wrong. I can't prevent things from future breaking. All I can do is say that things are maintained down there at the plant. Anybody's more than welcome to come down and look at our records, because I've maintained records since I've gotten there.
Yeah.
Before then, I can't. I'll tell you, you can do some digging, but we're doing our absolute best. Putting in more time than putting in a lot of time down there. So,
And as far as, so the tank situation, getting those tanks functional, that will help with the sludge issue, correct?
partial.
No?
We can fix that tank. That's not going to help our disposal, period. With those open air drying beds like I've talked about before, it's a shot in the dark because it's all weather dependent.
Yep.
You need it dry to haul it. If we can't haul it, we can't remove the biosolids.
Yep.
So if we can't remove the biosolids, we can't operate a plant effectively. So this tank gets done, I'm able to reuse it. I still got to get rid of all the solids in that west digester because they're old, they're aged. When you're talking percent solids in a tank, we're over 3%. That's really thick. I got to get rid of it. So I wanted to have that tank back online tomorrow, the east one. It just wasn't going to happen. We filled it back up today. We keep having to fill it up, lower it, fill it up, lower it. We made a few repairs last week, hoping it was done. It wasn't. We found a couple leaks. I'm hoping it's just the rings. You can't see very well when the water is above it. So even though it's clear water, we can't see. So we started dropping it again today, repressurized it, couldn't see anything. So tomorrow I'm hoping it's just a retainer ring. If it's just a retainer ring, I can fix that fairly quick. But if it's another repair, we got to drop the foot and a half of water back out of it, make another repair, and hopefully we're good.
Yeah.
Everything else looks great.
Okay.
Pressurized it, looks good. And I'm hoping tomorrow will be it.
So I remember a while ago we talked about a different way to a different process of drying, as like a press or something. Is that something that you've considered budgeting or getting actual hard numbers on?
I can get hard numbers on it, but it's awfully expensive.
Very. I was gonna start looking into some funds from DFA. That's part of their funding process within the EPA. DFA helps with grants. Seen with a small community like we are,
Yep.
we should be entitled to quite a few grants with the EPA. So I was hoping maybe we could find something to help with our biosolids. Because if we can run that plant year-round to where we can process our solids and get rid of them, we'll never run into a backup issue, at least as long as I'm here.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds like that might be something to definitely look into, especially coming into budgeting season. Like if there's grants, you know, if there's a portion that obviously if there's dollars that the village need to commit, would be useful to know, especially for forecast, even if it's not this year, but forecast for following years, so.
but that's the bottleneck of the whole plant, are those drying beds. Can't process it, can't get rid of it. I've been trying to work with farmers, having a hard time with farmers, like we talked about it before here. I got one that's hopeful within the next week or two, very hopeful. So he's very interested, just gotta get that paperwork done. If I don't have the paperwork done, who knows how long it's gonna take for the EPA to approve.
Yep.
So, but we are heading in the right direction. I'm really excited on the progress we're making. So, I think we're making progress.
Good.
And I extend to everybody here. Let me know, come down to the plant, see how we're doing.
Sounds good.
And even just see what's going on. So,
Thanks, Joel.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming tonight,
Yeah.
getting this updated. Any other questions for Joel or Corey?
I was just curious about the sidewalks and cement projects. Do we have a date when they'll be finished?
They're supposed to pour tomorrow and Thursday.
Weather depending, just in time of the rain.
Okay, any other questions?
I'd like to add one more thing.
Okay,
As Corey did say, EPA visit went very well. She's very happy with the plant, how the communication is going between the village, myself and her. So I'm very happy about that.
good.
There was a minor hiccup in one of the samples, just so you know. Nothing that I can control, it's a mercury sample. So we're gonna look at doing further like outreach within the village, potentially. They require us to do a mercury PMP, it's a study within the village, to reach out to all the industries to help them reduce mercury within their businesses. So I had less than stellar, less than 50% of the industries in town sent me information back. So if the industries don't want to work with us, it's going to be kind of hard. Because I've already had two flyers, well, I've had one flyer last year and one flyer this year. It's something I can't control because you cannot treat mercury, but it's something that we can help, hopefully in the community, as long as people get back with me, we can help control what might get in the sewer system. So, but that's it. That's the only thing she saw. But I just wanted to.
We will be purchasing more. What have we done? Have we done 2 or 3 lift stations with the floats?
It's either 2 or 3.
We've got obviously 7 lift stations and they're all mercury floats. So from a village standpoint, you know, we need to get those out of the system. We've done 2 or 3 already this year. We're hoping to get the rest of them done before the end of the year.
Just one station might take 2 hours, another station might take 3. It takes some time to get things, wires fed, relanded in the panels. So we just try to work our time correctly so we can get it in there and get done. But those will be done this year. But that's all.
I'm sure.
Okay, Troy, solicitor's report.
And the first thing, just going in order,
Cheryl put on there that she got the information from the auditor on our percentage of the local government fund, 6.9%, and the estimated amount's $93,215.48. And all this requires is basically passing the motion to accept that amount. I think she also, I didn't get it, but I thought she also provided you guys with some
She did.
historical numbers or something.
22 and 21.
Yeah. That's a little less, I believe. Is that correct?
It's less than 22, it's more than 21.
Less than 22, more than 21.
I didn't see any historical numbers.
Yeah, I either did. Maybe you just have them.
I thought she gave them to you.
No.
No.
There was $97,908.45 in 2022, and it's $93,000. And in 2021, it was $82,426.57. So it's more than 21, less than 22.
Okay, I'll accept the motion to pass this.
Make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Egley. Yes. Klepper,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
And next is Resolution 2023-14, a second reading by caption only, a resolution authorizing the village administrator to enter into a lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management for vehicle replacements.
Any discussion on that second reading? Okay.
Next is a first reading of Resolution 2023-15 by caption only, a resolution of the Village of Hicksville, Ohio, directing the Defiance County Auditor to assess and enter the delinquent cost of weed and grass mowing on the tax duplicate of the properties described in Exhibit A and declaring an emergency, of which is because it has to be into the auditor by a certain time to get on the taxes.
We'll vote to suspend the rules.
Second.
Just real quick, do we have to pass that so each time we're making amendment, basically we're assessing taxes?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do it once a year and we wait as long as we can. That's why we do it as an emergency.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're still mowing, obviously, so
Yeah.
that we get as much of it as we can in this year.
I'll do a second.
Roll call.
Bassett,
Yes.
Egley. Yes. Klepper,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Barth,
Yes.
So second, third readings of Resolution 2023-15 by caption only, a resolution of the Village of Hicksville, Ohio, directing the Defiance County Auditor to assess and enter the delinquent cost of weed and grass mowing on the tax duplicate of the properties described in Exhibit A and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Egley. Yes. Klepper,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Next is Resolution 2023-16, a first reading by caption only, a resolution of the Village of Hicksville, Ohio, directing the Defiance County Auditor to assess and enter the delinquent water and sewer bills on the tax duplicate of the properties described in Exhibit A and declaring an emergency. Again, the emergency is for the same reason, so we can get them on the taxes.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second. Second. Roll call.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Egley. Yes. Klepper,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Second, third readings of Resolution 2023-16 by caption only, a resolution of the Village of Hicksville, Ohio, directing the Defiance County Auditor to assess and enter the delinquent water and sewer bills on the tax duplicate of the properties described in Exhibit A and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Klepper,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Egley. Yes.
Next is Resolution 2023-17, first reading by caption only, a resolution submitting to the electors of the Village of Hicksville the question of an additional 5.0 mil tax levy for fire protection and EMS services within the village pursuant to revised code 5705.19I and 5705.191 and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend.
For historical purposes, the one we passed before was to get the information from the auditor about how much it would generate We got that information in. Some of that is in the second whereas clause and then later in there as far as how much it'll generate and the rates. And then this is the one that would be necessary in order to get it on the ballot here coming up in November. And this resolution, along with certified copies of the other stuff, have to be at the Board of Elections by Wednesday at 4. Anyway, sorry, Mark.
Thank you. Roll call.
How much was it supposed to generate? Have you seen any of that?
The $286,200 annually.
Okay.
$175 for each $100,000 of appraised value, not the taxable value, the appraised value.
It's a bit frustrating that this is the first time we're seeing any of these values. Like when did, you know when we got?
I can tell you that I picked it up on a Friday afternoon from the auditor because, first of all, there was a mistake in the figures from the auditor's office that Cheryl and I caught. And then the way they do it, the way they did it up until Friday was she would put it in the mail. So I was waiting the entire time so that I could finish this. And then I was off. I was just at home, but Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday last week. So on Wednesday, I think it was, I talked to Cheryl and said, have you gotten that from the auditor yet? And she said, no, not yet. So then Thursday morning, she emailed it to me, and I realized that one of the figures, the $175 for each 100,000, wasn't included on the estimate. So we had emailed her. I had a phone conversation with her, I'm going to say Friday morning at about 10:30 in the morning, and she said she was redoing it and emailed me and said you can pick it up sometime this afternoon. And I picked it up at sometime after lunch on Friday afternoon. Told Cheryl that I have it. I emailed then I finished the resolution once I had it on Friday afternoon, and I emailed that to Cheryl on Friday. So that would have been the first possible time that it could have been there.
Has finance discussed anything, like as far as what we actually need to operate?
We've asked, and I've asked Fire EMS, I've asked them, you know, how much money they have over the last 5 years have they billed and how much did they receive? And typically, I have to go back and look at it, remember what it was? 30%, 32% or something like that from what they bill. And of course you ask, well, maybe you're not billing enough. And they said, well, you can only bill so much because we're dependent on Medicare and Medicaid. And you can bill more, and then you still receive the same amount. Just make sure, it just makes your percentage of what you bring in less.
Right.
So if you bill twice the amount of money, you only still bring in the same amount. Instead of collecting 30% of what you bill, you might only get 15% of what you bill. Then, you know, we have all the township contracts and stuff, the cost for full-time EMTs. And some years they were deficit spending 100,000. Some years they were deficit spending 20, 30,000. It wasn't consistent. And I know Cheryl had said that this, because we didn't know 5 mil was the right dollar amount. And her, right, because right now we have a 10 and a 2. And her goal was to have the 5, this is what she had told us. I know she's not here to speak for herself, but she had told us that she planned on having this, and then when the 2 mil levy was up for renewal, she was not going, she had no intentions of doing that. And again, she would just let that one drop.
We wouldn't need it.
So we just have the original 10, which we actually don't get what you would think you get out of that one.
And that's just the regular tax base.
Yes.
That's not like a levy per
Correct.
se. That's their.
So we would drop the 2 and keep the 5. And we wouldn't have the 5 and the 2.
Right.
And that was her goal of timing wise, because right now they start off at, I don't have the paperwork in front of me, but they start off this year for the EMS like maybe 28 or 30 some $1,000s in the positive. Well, if they got to make payroll, they don't get their first check until like March. And that's why we had to transfer money the very first couple of meetings there so we could pay payroll. And so we knew they needed to do something to generate more money. We just, money from paying salaries can come out of general fund. And I know there's been discussion on doing that or not doing that, and who likes to take money for EMS stuff. Some people say it should pay for itself. And so there's a lot of different opinions on how you should pay for the EMS. I think it's a need, it's not a want. So to me, if we gotta take it out of the general fund, we take it out of general fund to help pay their salaries. It's not like not like we're overpaying them, I promise you that. I know they get a lot of overtime because we only have 4 EMTs, but I think it's a need for our community to keep. We don't want to lose full-time EMTs. We don't want to lose our EMT, you know, all sorts of stuff going on in the hospital right now. I mean, there could be all sorts of changes in the future for them. So, I don't know. No, we've never discussed, I've never seen this number other than when we got the packet on Saturday. Actually, I already knew the way I was voting for, so I never even really looked at it too much, so.
And I think that's why she sent an email out saying the packets were going out of date, because we were waiting for the updated information from the auditors. She would have gotten that resolution from me, I think it was after lunch on Friday sometime.
When does, do you know when the 2 mil levy expires?
2 years, 2 or 3.
One of them just renewed here not too long ago. Well, that one did.
Probably 2 years ago.
You know, we had talked about when Scott was.
So it's probably got 3 years
You know, when
left.
Scott was here, we talked a lot about this over the years. When Scott was here, he didn't want to take one, because if you lose one, you can't, you lose it. So if you try to change it where this is, you're putting it, letting the taxpayers decide if they're willing to pay extra, because we're running basically on 4 people for the EMS squad. We don't have the money to go hire another 2 or 3 to cover fuller shifts. These guys are running all the time. The EMRs, you know, trying to get some extra time, and they got a couple, correct me if I'm wrong, part-timers, you know, like I said, I went over to John, I sat with John and talked to him, I talked to Cheryl, I talked to Jill, I tried to do some investigation, I saw these numbers 2 months ago. Sitting there talking.
But they were just
Right,
estimates.
they were
yeah,
estimates, right.
2 months
I saw
ago.
this 57 million, you know, with the
Yeah,
property and
right.
stuff like that, so. You know, I think there's a real need, I think if we're gonna do something with restructuring finance and how we finance and pay for those services, I mean, fire, EMS, and police, you know, it's, you know, we support them 3 agencies with coverage for not only our town, but the townships, you know, work a lot with them. I mean, we need them. We're basically the only fire and rescue beside the county. You know, Sherwood's got their own department, Delaware, May, Farmer. But when it comes to EMS, on this side, you know, we need help. So we're pretty much letting the taxpayers decide if that's something they're willing to pay extra on. I don't think they understand the full ramifications of the people that do run for the department, how much time they spend. You know, I know there's some downtime, but they're to be in that squad and run when it's called, so.
I've got a citizen question, but I'll let Steve do it first.
I got a citizen question too. Tell me again how it affects our property taxes here in Hicksville?
The number provided by the auditor says that it's 100, and again, the key is the way you're looking, $175 for each $100,000 of appraised value. So when you look at your taxes, they have the 2 numbers. They have the appraised value, and then they have the taxable value, which is like 30-some%. So it's the appraised value. So if you had a $100,000 appraised house, it would cost you $175.
That's an estimate on their account, or?
No, it's pretty.
No,
That's pretty accurate.
That's pretty accurate, okay.
It's based on they have a figure as to $57,251,900 is the tax valuation of the property. So they just changed the law to go into effect this year to try and make it more simplistic for people to be able to understand how much it's going to affect it. I'm not certain.
Yes, thank you.
I'm not certain they've accomplished that,
Oh, okay.
but they have to some extent. But
That's per year though, right?
Yes.
right, that's correct.
per-
That's per year. Yep.
Thank you, that
That
helps me.
286,200 was an annual figure, not a life of the levy figure. That's an annual figure.
Thank you, that helps me a lot.
I got a couple questions. If I was sitting up there, comes in anywhere, I'd be asking them. What are you gonna do with this money? How many people are you going to hire? And what guarantee is that 2% or that 2 mil levy is gonna fall away in a couple of years? Will you just keep spending more and more because you're getting more and more money? That seems to be how things sometimes operate.
Good question.
Yeah, so, I mean, because I've heard it was EMS levy, now I'm hearing it's EMS fire. which
Well,
is not-
because the EMS is under the fire.
Well, yeah, but I think the citizens need to know
Yeah.
what you gotta do with this extra $287,000 a year.
You know, when we sit on these committees and we go through budget, we go through fire and police and fire committees, you know, now we're talking to Bruce, you know, John, Cheryl, I'm not making excuses, but we rely on the money they have coming in for the levies, and it's a set amount. every year. It's kind of a fixed amount. And as their departments go up and down, the operational expenses go up and down, payroll goes up, insurance goes up. To buy a piece of equipment today than it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago has definitely gone up. You know, you had a bill last month about outfitting, what, 5 individuals? What was that bill?
That bill was almost $15,000.
5 people.
5 people.
I'm just saying, it's,
And that's just the coat and the bumper pants.
But it's a valid question. We're trying to pass this via
Sure.
emergency.
I think the answer is there's no guarantee that 2%'s falling off.
Well,
That's gonna be up to
It'll be up to who sits
whoever's
here.
sitting here at the time that it falls off.
And we also haven't allocated how that $286,000 would be spent because if it passes, that's additional money on top of our regular fund. And those are things that we haven't discussed. At least I haven't been a part of any of the conversations.
So that money's not going to the EMT? I mean, it can be
But
changed or?
Well, no, it can't, it would go straight to the EMS fund, but then, right now, we have that 2 mil levy plus it's 10?
They call it 10, it's not.
Plus it's a
That's
10 mil
within the
levy.
10 mil,
Yeah.
but that
10 mil.
covers more than just fire and EMS stuff.
But those go into, so that goes into
Yeah.
the fund. So
Right.
if this levy passes, that would be an additional estimated $286,000 going into the fund.
Right.
That would be spent on EMS and fire, but that's additional money annually that we don't currently have or are currently using.
Well, we're kind of using it because we're transferring money from general fund to offset cost of salaries,
Right.
wages, pension, all that kind of stuff.
Using some of it.
Some of it, yeah.
Right.
And that's what Cheryl's goal of having this was to offset that cost, to actually be in the positive, and then be in the positive for a couple, 2-3 years until the 2 mil, and that's what she's told us was her intention was to drop the 2 mil.
To clarify, we're
Not
not using this money, we're using general fund money.
Currently, yeah, because we don't have any of this money.
Correct.
Right.
So we're using
Yeah.
general fund
So,
dollars.
so as of January 1st, the EMS had like $30,000 in their
Yes.
account. I promise you, since January 1st to now, we've spent a lot more than $30,000 in medical supplies, gas for the EMS, fixing the EMS, repairs,
Wages.
the comp payment, overtime, all the on-call stuff. So we've had to transfer money from the general fund to pay for it, and we had to do it again because we don't get paid. We get paid twice a year, March and September, I believe, and we didn't have enough money to pay for their wages.
From, when you say we get paid.
January, February, March.
But from, when you say we get paid, that's from.
The taxes.
the tax.
The taxes.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
yeah, right.
The 2 mil and the.
Yeah, right.
And by you saying we didn't have enough money, we didn't have enough money in the EMS fund. I just don't want to make
Correct.
sure that's being.
Correct, yeah, in the
The
EMS
village is
fund.
in an okay financial
Yeah, right,
situation.
yeah.
It's-
City's place.
I know right now, when you call EMS or fire, the response time is wonderful.
Well, the
I
only
mean,
problem I've got with that is we can't have Sherwood coming, all right,
And that happened last weekend. right?
yes,
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Okay.
You know, that's gotta stop.
We got 4 EMTs working 24/7. I mean, it's,
Well, you've got
On call all the
other
time.
volunteers, that's what they're there for. You
yeah,
know?
they gotta answer the call though.
Exactly.
So I don't know how many people, I might called 911 for my wife. The response time was a couple minutes and they were there. Fortunate it was during the day. At night, it's a little slower, but I think we need to get it on the ballot, let the taxpayers decide, just like
Well,
Mike said.
I mean, I understand that, but how many EMTs are you thinking of hiring additional? I think a lot of people
You're not saying-
want
They
to
were
know
looking,
that.
we never discussed adding more EMTs.
Well, then what are you gonna do with all this extra money if you're not adding bodies?
You gotta have more EMTs.
You gotta have more issues. I mean, we've
Why not?
talked about it, but
Unless they had more
but-
people for weekend stuff. They weren't looking to hire any more full-time or anything like that. That's never been brought up.
I think that discussion's been discussed before.
It has been. At one time, they were talking
You
about
wanna
having
hire more
8 full-time. At one time, years ago, they were talking about 8
Well,
full-time.
and I think that's what leads to confusion in the, because people, they still call and talk to me for whatever reason. But I'm also curious, are you talking about adding more full-time bodies, and is that gonna just keep going and going and going and going till you eat up all this money, and then, oh, we're still coming up short?
And this isn't just Hicksville that's dealing with this issue. If you
Well,
watch Fort Wayne News today, TRA out of Fort
Yeah.
Wayne, they're in
But-
the news almost on a monthly basis. It is an issue everywhere.
Yeah, I know, but what they're doing is not affecting the village.
No,
What are
true.
your plans? Are you gonna hire more full-time people if you can't find part-timers now?
I think the whole idea is we want to add more EMTs, period, whether they're full-time or whether they're volunteer.
We, and up
Because
to
we
this
need
point,
it.
we haven't been able to even have that discussion because there's not money there to even hire them. So if this goes through, then we can start having those discussions and candid conversations about what that would look like to make sure that the people that we have now aren't running on as much overtime.
A volunteer EMT gets paid, correct?
Mhm.
So,
Plus, it sounds to me, Eric, that the EMT is barely operating with enough money right now. They're
Yeah.
operating
not.
in the
They're not.
red.
They don't have enough.
They don't
They're
have
in
enough.
the
So they
deficit.
need something to even
Right.
stay level with where we're at now.
I really
right,
think
correct?
Cheryl did what she's asking for because her goal was to not go to tax people and say, hey, we need 2 mil. And you don't generate enough money to even pay for what we're deficit
Right.
spending now. She didn't want to go 3 mil and be borderline, and wages keep going up, cost of equipment, supplies keep going up. So she wanted to have it enough to cover the cost of it, and she'd always said that her intention was to drop to 2 mil when it came due again. And I'm not saying stockpile the money in an EMS account. And I've never been on one recently that we talked about adding more full-time EMTs either. I know we have EMTs that might be leaving us, we might be looking for full-time EMTs, but it's, you know, I have one that's pregnant, or maybe she had a baby, don't know if she's gonna return. We have one that's going to nursing school, don't know if she's gonna return. If she, you know, gets her degree and she decides she doesn't wanna be an EMT anymore, make more money.
One
So,
approaching retirement.
one's close to retirement, Bob. I mean, so there's 3 out of 4 of our EMTs, and I mean, when you're on call 24/7, 7 days a week, you get burnt out. You know what it's like, Kent.
Yeah, but I also remember when we had a lot of volunteers.
Volunteers
Yeah,
are gone, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but.
You
it's
don't have
gone.
volunteers nowadays.
You know,
No.
they want paid, they want compensated.
all the
They'll go
old,
sit-
all the old ways have gone to the wayside.
Absolutely.
You've got to look to the future and do what's right for the future.
And I'll say some of the questions Kent asked are good questions or whatever, but those are probably the type of questions that's the responsibility of everybody sitting around here
Exactly.
to educate people before November 7th, if it's gonna be on the ballot. That's not necessarily a question that has to be answered before somebody decides, hey, we should put it on.
Yes and no. I think the tough thing, at least from my perspective, is where did 5 mil come from? We're saying we lack coverage, but if we don't have a plan for what that coverage needs to increase to, or how many bodies we need to hire in order to run this adequately, it might turn out that we need 7 mil to, I mean, then you don't drop the 2 mil levy, and that's the tough thing. It's tough from my perspective that I just feel behind on this whole thing. But obviously we're up against the deadline, so.
I think some of what Kent's saying is okay. We're just asking from sitting out here, we're just asking for some accountability.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
to be responsible, right?
I agree.
Right.
I guess I had a different question, which is coming from me as a private citizen. Are firefighters also trained as basic EMTs as well? Are they able to drive the ambulance in a case, let's say, that the EMTs are off duty or unavailable? Are the normal firefighters able to transport people as well?
They can drive, but they can't treat. The EMRs can oversee it, but the actual EMT has to do the service.
Could you have a firefighter that could be both a firefighter and a paramedic?
Sure,
Ones that get
Yes.
certified.
yeah.
Well, we don't have a paramedic.
No, we don't have paramedics
Or, I
and
mean,
I shouldn't say
But
that.
they can be an EMT in it.
John's an EMT and firefighter. I mean, we've had a couple come through and decide to go with
I
both
mean, we've got
services.
one paramedic, but we don't use him as a paramedic, correct?
No, we
He's
don't.
part-time, right?
No, Bruce Silcox.
Bruce is part-time.
But he's a paramedic, but we don't use him as a paramedic.
Okay, good discussion. We need that, so.
I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Now we need a roll call.
Okay, ready for a roll call? Any other questions? We'll make sure we got this right.
Bassett?
For the suspend the rules?
Suspend the
Yes.
rules.
Yes.
Egley?
Yes.
Klepper?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Barr?
Yes.
So second and third readings of resolution 2023-17 by caption only, a resolution submitting to the electors of the village of Hicksville the question of an additional 5.0 mil tax levy for fire protection and EMS services within the village pursuant to revised code 5705.19I and 5705.191 and declaring an emergency.
So move.
Second.
Any other discussion before we vote? Roll call.
Egley,
Yes.
Klepper,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett,
No.
Next is first reading of Resolution 2023-18 by caption only. The first reading, resolution to assess streetlight millage and declaring an emergency.
Make motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Klepper,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Egley,
Yes.
Barth,
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes, same. It's been the same for years.
Yeah.
It is the same as going.
Yeah, it's never, it's
Sometimes
I
it's
don't know the last time it's ever changed, so it's been.
Probably about
Yeah.
8 years ago.
I wanna say it was before I was on council.
Back up.
Yeah, it's always
So-
$1.
Second and third reading of Resolution 2023-18 by caption only, a resolution to assess streetlight millage and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Martin,
Yes.
Klepper,
Yes.
Egley,
Yes.
Bassett,
Yes.
Barth,
Yes.
And last is Resolution 2023-19, a first reading by caption only, a resolution enter into an agreement with the Defiance County Commissioners for the recovery of monies expended for providing legal counsel to indigent persons for the calendar year 2024. That's one of those that we pass every year so that we can get reimbursed from the state for any money that's expended for court-appointed attorneys on Hicksville cases.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Other questions for Troy?
Where are we at with the tower and easement and all that? I'll go back on Industrial Drive. We got any farther?
There's been some movement. They got a contact person. There was a Zoom call. Were you on that?
Yeah, I was on that.
I was in court, so I was unable to attend. And it's my understanding that they got a person and a face they're talking to now.
It's
The
moving.
SMTA has been helpful. Rick has been helpful in doing all of that. They got, I believe they got a surveyor that's drawing up some easement descriptions so that the SMTA can help with the movement of the lines, the like fiber lines and stuff that are in there that have to be moved, so they can relocate the drive, because those lines are up along where their temporary, where their gravel, I think it's gravel drive is, so,
Obviously, this just seems like it's taking a long time to get this done.
So why, I think we've discussed this, but why haven't we just had them exercise their first right of refusal? Say, you're either building, you're more than welcome to match this offer of building a 200,000 square foot spec building. And if not.
because here's the reason why is the way, and this is a legal interpretation that I don't necessarily agree with, but this is my recollection is, they interpret it basically that they could waive it for a particular project or not exercise it, but they still continue to have the right, so that anytime the end user, I mean, put it this way, if that's their way they're going to interpret it without having a lawsuit to declare that that's not proper, then Keller is not going to be interested in that lot, because he's not going to want to have to go to them if he builds a how many ever square foot building and does everything, and then decides that he wants to sell it to, say, a factory moves in there, and now they got to go back to them and say, hey, we need you to waive it again so we can transfer it to.
So it's not even a first right of refusal, it's a right of refusal in perpetuity?
It's a first right of refusal. But I'm saying that's the way, because when we initially started dealing with them, they're like, yeah, we'll waive it for this project. And we're like, great. And then they sent the language that they had, and I right away was like, no, that's not proper. That's not right. And then that's when I started trying, and they were kind of ghosting for a while, and we didn't have somebody, and then we got somebody, and they were working on it, and then that's when, we hired the law firm to deal with it. That's what the lawsuit was basically going to be is, hey, you either exercise it or it's void forever.
Yeah.
And then we started communicating about, the other thing is, we can get them to not exercise it, but we can't force them to relocate that drive and stuff. So there's an element of, we gotta play a little nice because Keller wants them to do certain things that aren't addressed in that right of first refusal. So it's like, we need something from them too.
But they're dealing with
It's
lawyers.
still our tower though, isn't it?
It's their tower,
Their
it's
tower.
on our leased ground,
Okay.
but it's still their tower. And they have rights in the drive where it currently sits that Keller couldn't build a building across. And that's where he wants to build, that's right in the middle of where he wants to
Yeah.
potentially build. So in order for that lot to be usable for him, we gotta do something with the drive, which requires them to play ball.
Is that what is this the American Tower lease here? That's part of our minutes?
Oh, I didn't even.
It's the very last page.
Yeah, but is this the tower
Yeah,
that we're dealing with?
Tower lease.
Oh, payment, are you talking about a payment for it or something?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a huge amount, as I recall. But that's the long and short of why it wasn't just, hey, you guys want to build us a, whatever, how many ever, 100,000 square foot spec building? Go ahead, exercise your right and start building.
So is this for renewal? Am I reading this correctly?
It's on a contract, so it's like a yearly payment. I don't even know what you're looking at, Taylor. I don't always get everything you guys get.
What are,
So commencing November 1st, 2023.
It was on the very last page of the minutes.
That was MD7, that's right.
2078. Ooh. It's a long time. I don't want to renew it to them anymore. I think they're done.
Well, I said, is this up for renew, I mean, does this expire?
It's not, this says they're trying to they're reaching out to try and modify the current, I don't know what the current rent, so what they're trying to do is reduce their amount of their rent. I basically say if they don't want it, get out.
That's where I'm at.
Or a one-time payment of $125,000 in exchange for a perpetual real estate interest.
Almost every year too. Well, maybe it's.
So what, I mean,
is their
we
contract
should
up?
probably, this just came in, we should probably forward this to the people that have been talking to them. Because I'll give you, for instance, if, I have to think it through and just looking at it is, if we could make the arrangements to move the drive and do all that to be convenient and get them to just release their right of first refusal in exchange for selling them that little piece of ground that the tower sits on for 120, we should run to the bank and have them do it. I mean, so, but there isn't anything that's up. If you read the way this is worded is, they're saying they need to adjust. So this is like a proposal to renegotiate the terms. And I don't know off the top of my head how much the monthly lease is. There's a 10% term escalation. So they're trying to lock it in for longer. I mean, that would be ridiculous, obviously,
Yeah.
for sure, based on the problems we've had. But yeah, I mean, if there's a possibility that we could, because the way that we have it worked now, if everything would go through as has been being planned, then the village would still own that little square that the tower sits on.
Yeah.
And Keller would own everything else that's around, and then they would just have an easement to use part of what would be his parking lot to access that site instead of having their gravel drive that they have now. So the village would own it. If they got that tower on it, I don't know that, I mean, if they're gonna pay something for it. And by doing that release, I mean, it would have to come with a release of that right of first refusal on the other site. I mean, but probably even a lesser amount would be worth selling it to them. I mean, seriously.
Should Marv see that letter?
Mark, yeah. Probably, yeah, Mark Warnke.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark and,
Mark too.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, for sure, because it may help in the, it may give an angle as far as negotiating and trying to get things saying like, hey, you know, if you're willing to buy the site, you know, or whatever, you know, we can find a way to make that work as long as we get what we want in exchange.
I was encouraged the meeting we had.
Sounded like it went pretty well.
Yeah,
Ken's got a
so-
question there.
Well, here again, I think, I'm not disagreeing, but do you know what all they have hooked on that tower? What services you might be depriving your public of by getting rid of their tower? You might want to find out what all's up there.
Which should only be theirs, I mean, it should only
I-
be whatever they've approved, and
Well, I know.
presumably they, I mean, it's their tower, that, I mean, it's always been their tower, we don't have any
Yeah.
control over it.
Well, no, I'm just saying, if you get rid of it, what services are the residents going to lose?
We're not getting rid of the tower, we're getting rid of the land. They're still keeping the tower there.
There's 3 carriers on that right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, they own
have
the
a
tower now,
proposal.
we can't
So
control.
they sent us a proposal, an option to reduce their rent that they're
Yeah,
on,
I
lease payment,
saw
or sell their.
It was in
sell
the
their
packet.
land.
Yeah, it was.
That's what we're discussing
Yeah,
now.
if you're taking away their access road, why don't you want to keep?
They'd still have
Well,
access.
they still have access.
They would
it
still
just
have
would be-
access.
It'd be on blacktop instead of a gravel drive.
Right, right.
They would be through, basically the easement would be held through the new owner of the spec building's property. That
Right.
easement would be granted from them to their access,
Right.
not the
I
village.
wouldn't like that if I was them, but that's just me. Because now when I got a problem, I got to dig up asphalt instead of my stone driveway.
Yeah, but I think they're only, I mean, I don't think they're gonna have lines under the
No,
asphalt.
correct.
It's just gonna be, they're gonna be able to drive across the asphalt to get to their tower.
The
They're
lines
talking
would
about,
be- they're
that's what we're talking about
together.
doing easements for, to relocate the lines, that's what SMTA's been working on, to relocate the lines so that they're not next to that drive where it is now, so the asphalt in the building won't be over top of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay. See any other
Question,
questions?
Fisher? You raising your hand up?
Oh, no,
Oh, I thought you were.
I don't even know where we're at.
So, any other questions for Troy? Department heads, police chief.
Our wall has been fixed from the damage from the car accident. You should have stats for the end of June. The enterprise rental, or the enterprise car, when it was read, the resolution was for them to enter into. Does that include?
It includes you, it's him to enter into the contract, but it's
Okay.
for the village.
All right.
He's
so-
the person that signs contracts on behalf of the village.
All right, because
Yeah.
they had a Dodge truck for us to look at, but I declined
Yeah.
on the truck because you can't get a prisoner transport seat. So I don't want to take the chance of having someone urinate like they did in the other one and have to replace it, so. I think
That rumor started.
that's all I've got.
Okay, any questions for the chief? Okay, thanks. Fire, EMS, Bruce.
I have nothing.
Park director, not here. Is anything, Corey? Fiscal officer's report. Dawn?
It's all in your packets.
Perfect.
Color Wednesday.
You need a count for the back-to-school breakfast.
You can email Cheryl or I
Is
if
anybody
you want
planning to
to.
go? Eric, you'll be there.
I'll be there.
I plan to be there.
If you, and we will RSVP you, yes.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Okay. Mayor's report, the last concert series is the 17th, it'll be a week from Thursday, yeah. It's Sarah Brush at 7 o'clock. The fair starts August the 19th. That's before our next council meeting. And remind everybody tomorrow to vote, issue 1. A lot of information on that. And that's at the Empowered Church on Hicksville, Edgerton Road. So that's all I have. Any questions for me?
I've got two things I'd like to just discuss from an economic development standpoint. So one thing, I've been talking with Erica Wilter from, obviously the economic development group. One thing we've discussed as a potential for the 20 acres of housing lots that we've got out there is basically putting an RFQ out for developers and utilizing the CIC to potentially basically give the land to a developer, or basically the developer that submits the best proposal, basically in return for certain benchmarks to be hit. So by this year, you have to, by like whatever that timeline is, by this year you have to have a road in, by this time you have to have X number of houses built. And I believe we're able to put those constraints on those, basically on that agreement. So I wanted to basically get the rest of council's opinion on something like that, basically as a way to entice developers to potentially be interested in Hicksville. Obviously, we can't compete from a lot cost standpoint with land that's being purchased, but we would be able to basically go through and potentially attract them with free land in return for new homes being built. I wanted to throw that out there and I guess see what you guys think about that.
Any comments?
How does it work in terms of like, running water and sewer out there? Like, is that?
So that would be their responsibility as the developer, and they would have to be built to village standards for us to
Okay.
take over operations.
So they would be in charge of that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have subdivision standards and everything, so curbs and storm sewer needs sized at this rate, and sewers and all of that stuff.
And they would probably use TIF money, I'm guessing. That's about the only way.
Potentially,
Yeah.
but basically, they would be looking at free land, so that may offset. And that's something that Erica, she's just kind of getting this new software up and running where she can look at
Yes.
that and basically balance what our, current tax base is and forecast, okay, you're gonna have families of this stature moving in, paying X number of dollars in real estate taxes and how that would affect. So, are you familiar with what a TIF is?
She talked about it last week, and
Yeah.
she said she was gonna bring numbers to us, and I'm not a fan of just giving away property that we own. That's why I voted no for that parcel split. I mean, I know it's not much, but it's property we own. And so I'd like to see her numbers first before I ever approve anything like that.
She's going to be here at the next meeting on another issue, so
Yeah.
maybe she'll have it ready.
Well, so what her software can do is model basically from the TIF standpoint, wouldn't necessarily, so basically, we're just sitting out there paying to mow it right now. So we're not getting any tax money off of that as it sits. So that's where I personally don't believe we're gonna get a developer to come to Hicksville to do that, because, well, first of all, it has to be for sale. And we tried that once, it didn't work out. But in a situation like that, we would still have the opportunity to say, no, we don't like any of your proposals. But what we would be doing is putting an RFQ out there for any developers to say, okay, here's 20 acres, this is what we would like to see, what we want to see what you would propose for this 20 acres in return. So, I personally like the idea, it's about the only way I can see attracting somebody to come and do anything like that in Hicksville. But
And I agree with you, Taylor. I've done some research and what do we have that sold for? Is it 200,000 for auction?
yeah,
5,000.
So that's what, but I think with Erica comes with a software that will tell how much more income tax you would get. It would all set that. How many years? That's something we need to know.
yeah. Well, and I think, and I'll have to talk to her about the modeling of the situation that like us basically donating the land in return for houses. I don't know if that will, like, how that would model. I think the TIF is where it would be a bigger player, and there's potential that if the land is donated in return for housing, the TIF may not be needed. So, just gotta figure out ways to attract people.
I've had one contact said that they'd be interested, I'm not gonna give a name, to come in, start talking to us, so.
And Court, out there with the lift station, I know it's definitely needs replaced. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it was 100,000, 3, 4, Kim might remember too, because that's been something we've looked at for a long time. It would be something the city or the developer would have to maybe take a look at what's, we have to do that if that third road goes back in. We're getting by with
We need
it
an
overall.
Well, we'd have to engage. It's similar to, it's gonna take all of our resources to try and figure something out here. It's just like this spec building. It's really, essentially no different, other than you've got jobs versus housing. And there's a handful of things that are coming, like Erica mentioned, with expansion, that we need more housing. We do, with things that are coming, and we've got to figure it out. We've got to be proactive here. So that's just one of the things that that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, get people's opinions. Obviously, I'll talk with Erica this week and try and maybe get a better idea of what that looks like. And then also, obviously, we're talking about all of the need for dollars, but we don't have a plan. And I've said this many times. We're reacting to all of this stuff. So we basically have two options. It's basically ask for more tax revenue or figure out how to grow our tax base. And we have no plan to grow our tax base right now, and we're in the position of asking for more tax dollars. I think we really need to consider putting together a real plan for what we're going to do to attract people to this community. Because we're talking about EMS now, in a couple of years, we'll probably just be talking about general fund dollars. And everything's getting more expensive, and I think you really, really, really strongly need to consider engaging in the master planning process.
We talked about that, I agree with that. Getting a committee together to get look at different avenues to start that ball rolling.
Erica's a good resource.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the key, and she's willing to help.
Yeah, and Erica's obviously not gonna be the one putting the plan together, but
No.
basically what I would like to see is putting out 2 RFQs or RFPs, depending on how you brand them. But one is for master planning services, and the other one is for the housing side.
So council, think about it, mull over it.
I'll talk with Erica before the next council meeting, so we can
Yeah.
obviously get
She'll
more
be here.
information, but frankly, I'd like to see those go out in the next month or 2. Like, there's just a lot of things happening that we need to be ahead of. That's all I've got.
Okay, anything else, Taylor? Anybody else got anything they want to add?
No question. Go ahead.
I was just curious where we were at with the job posting. Have we
So
started
we've got
the
one
interview?
resume and we've got another resume coming, but we're just waiting on that second resume.
Did we have a date?
I think the paper said July 31st, but we've got one that was interested, talked with the mayor, and they're gonna send the resume, which I'll send to the personnel committee.
He's gonna send it to you, right, the resume?
You're
I
correct.
talked just the one.
Yeah.
Very interested
Yeah,
though.
I just know that we're down to like 4 months, and it'd be kind of nice to have that, like everything else, you got budgets coming in at the end of the year and that, so.
Okay. Any other questions?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
A second.
I should have just written that.
Roll call.
Automatically in the minutes.
I know.
Barth?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
Egley?
Yes.
Klepper?
Yep.
Martin?
Yes.